Hello there, Zach McReynolds from the Cherie and Zach team. NextHome Real Estate Rockstars, Valencia, California. How's it going? I wanted to do a little market update. It's officially a weekend of September 2021. I figured it'd be a good time to talk about some things and kind of go over what we've been experiencing, what's going on in the market. Obviously, we get asked a lot, daily, multiple times a day, how's the market, what's going on? I think there's a little bit of a false narrative out there. Yes, the market was hot. It definitely is changing. Things have definitely settled down since probably right about 4th of July, maybe like the week before. A lot of the craziness we were experiencing earlier in the year in spring is definitely subsided. There's not as many of the 40 offers and all the stuff that, some of the craziness that you've heard early on. There are still a lot of buyers in the market, and there are still multiple offers, especially on the good properties, but there are things that are sitting. And here, let's talk about the market, eh? So this is a little snapshot. This is how many houses we have on the market. So we're still in low inventory. We still have only 319 houses on the market in Santa Clarita. This is not including Acton, Agua Dulce, just Santa Clarita proper. I don't know if that's a term or not. But that's very low. Santa Clarita pre-pandemic averaged about 300 transactions a month, pretty much on the dot. Almost every year we sold right around 3,600 homes a year. Obviously divide that by 12, 300. So that's a pretty good average. So they say the precipice of a buyer's and a seller's market is at the 6 month of inventory. So if we average 300 a month, times that by 6, you get 1,800. That would be the point, the swivel point, when we would transfer into a buyer's market. Anything under 1,800 would be considered a seller's, and anything over 1,800 would be considered a buyer's. Well, I've been in real estate since 2010, and there's pretty much never been 1,000 houses on the market. In those early years, 2010, 11, there was 1,000, maybe a little, right around there, but a lot of the short sales, obviously, right? The bank on the short sales. So especially since the market's been stable, we haven't seen 1,000 houses on the market, since we climbed out of, they call the bottom of the market really 2011. So what does that all mean? It means we were operating out of a couple months inventory, became kind of our norm. As we got to the end of 2018 and the beginning of 2019, when rates got up to over 5%, they were 5.25%. We did see inventory grow. We got to about 900 houses on the market, right around there. So really that was only 3 months of inventory. So even then, when everything slowed down, the days on the market was like 45 days average. We were still technically in a pretty strong seller's market with only 3 months of inventory. So that all being said, we only have 319 houses on the market today, so we have about 1 month of inventory. Now that is the most. It was up a little higher in the last few weeks, and we've seen as high as 350, 360. But that's the most that we've had since the beginning of the pandemic. Let's call it March of last year. In March, everything obviously happened, all the shutdowns, everything happened, with sports canceling, all that stuff, and then our real estate board, they came in pretty swiftly, shut down open houses, all that kind of happened right around March going into April. Now, here's something that's pretty interesting. Let me show you something here. So if we look at, I'm going to look at the entire MLS over, pretty much it's the furthest I can go back with this data. This is showing closed sales for the entire MLS that our MLS covers, going back to 2008. So that's a pretty significant date, because that's pretty much, when the bubble burst, right? So since the bubble to now, you see this mark of 25,000 units of sales, right? There's been 1, 2, 3. These are all these points are months. 3, 4, 5, 6 months in a 12-year period leading up to 2020 that saw its highest volume months of 25,000. But post pandemic, right here, right? Here you go, March, but March, we still saw a good volume because everything that closed in March obviously was entering into escrow in the February prior. So March, April really was the first downturn of the effects of the pandemic. And then April, May, and then things started to pick back up June. So then you got July over 25,000. So post-pandemic, pre-pandemic for 12 years, we had 6 months ever see that the highest volume ever. 6 months reached over 25,000 closings. Post-pandemic, 11 of these months have all of what, 19, 18 or 19 months. So 11 of 18, 11 of 19. Now let's look at that specifically as Santa Clarita. So same thing. I'm looking at 2008. My bad. I'll make that bigger. 2008, 300. This is like our average, right? So you see it just kind of go up and down above. 400 is this bar of like highest volume months, right? So same thing. In those 12 years, it's the same. It's 12 of these, or I'm sorry, 6 of these points in those 12 years sold over 400. And then boom, March 2020, April, May, June, July, August, September, October, November dipped just under, December, boom, January and February, which are always slower months, and then March. So again, same thing. 11 of the months during the pandemic have had the highest record closed units volume we've ever had. 11 of the last 19 months have been the highest we've ever had when we had 6 months in 12 years. So that's pretty crazy. It's just an interesting stat. Obviously it's showing, and we did all that with the lowest inventory we've ever had, right? So we've had the lowest inventory we've ever had during all this, but yet having record closing months during that. So now let's talk about something. What does that mean? It means, I think there's a lot of parts to that, right? We've been seeing a lot of people come to Santa Clarita. We were already kind of a destination city pre-pandemic, where a lot of people were moving here from Glendale, Pasadena, Burbank, other parts of the valley, even the deeper LA. There was a fear. People always wanted to come here because we have great schools, right? We are considered cheap for LA County. We're one of the last spots that we're still at these lower price points for Los Angeles County. We have those great schools. We have low crime. There's a lot of good infrastructure that Santa Clarita has put into our city. We've got, the trees, and it's got a vibe. It's got a pretty vibe. Whenever we meet people that were coming here from different areas, they always were kind of taken back by, the trees and the parks and all the things that the city's really done very well at implementing into the city. Post-pandemic, I think we're seeing more and more people trying to get out of denser populated areas, and especially during some of this craziness of the low rates, right? So low rates started kind of this little surge in people wanting to buy, but then more so as a lot of companies weren't requiring people to go back into work and you were to work from home. If you had to stay semi-close to work, you couldn't leave the state and still work for the same company. People were coming here because that was the one thing that was keeping people from coming here were the commute times, right? Well, now you can come here. We are considered so much cheaper. And I think a lot of these people coming up from like Glendale, when you hear people going 100,000 over and waiving appraisals, I think there's a lot of people coming from out of area because they had the money from potentially selling something in those areas. Imagine what 1,000 square feet in Burbank is. That's well over $1 million at this point. And you come out here and you can get a nice big house. At the beginning of the pandemic, 3,000 square feet in Saugus was still around 700,000 with a pool. So you had those people coming up and going, well, crap, this is so cheap. Especially when it got very competitive. We had stuff that had 20, 30, 40 offers on, or, not early on, but even this last spring, we had something that got 40 offers on it. So when that type of competition, you had a lot of people that had cash because they've already sold something, close that out. They made it a great price in Glendale or Pasadena or Burbank, or even, West Valley, Woodland Hills, Canoga Park. And that price was still considered cheap to them. Oh, I can get 3,000 square feet with a pool for only 800. And you saw those people willing to go over. So that was a lot of the competition. People that were giving these crazy prices all had seemingly had all this money. Now what's interesting right now, so we definitely felt the slowdown, like I said, kind of that week before 4th of July, it felt like things started to slow down. We've still had some good success lately, but we're seeing it. And if you look at, this is my little hot sheet, this is in the last 7 days in Santa Clarita, again, no Acton, Agua Dulce, there's 47 price changes. Now, a price change can mean when they go from pending, active to pending. So sometimes when something goes pending, if it got over asking, the agent will change the price from what they were listed at to the new price as it goes up. But I went and counted all these down arrows rolled down. There's 30 of the 47 are price changes in the last week, and we've only got 319. So that's 10% of the market has now reduced a price. So we're feeling a difference here. It's happening. There are a lot of properties that aren't getting multiple offers now. The good stuff still is, especially the turnkey updated. There's still plenty of buyers out there. Rates are still low, but some of the toilet paper feeding frenzy we had on the market early on, when people would take anything, especially as it was so competitive. You had a lot of buyers that had struck out. I mean, I heard some horror stories of buyers that had wrote like 17, 20 offers. You struck out that many times, then when you're, on the next one, on the 21st one, then you're willing to do some crazy stuff. So as that is subsiding, you're seeing, less offers, not as many, maybe hopefully still multiple offers. That's the goal, but not 20 offers. Maybe it's 2, 3, 4, or 5 now, and less people going, 100,000 over and stuff like that. I mean, we're still seeing it, don't get me wrong, but it is different. Our buyers are, knock on wood, we're having some good wins for our buyers during all of this, because it is just a little bit different now. And another thing that I wanted to show, I believe is this. This was the entire market in Santa Clarita, I believe. Whoops, I'm not showing my screen. Did I not show my screen? Damn it. I'm gonna go back real quick. This is what I was saying. The price changes, my little hot sheet, there's 47 price changes. And as you go down here, you can see what's up and what's down. Typically the ups are something as it goes from active to pending, they're changing the price to their new price. But you see all of these down arrows. Of the 48 price changes, 30 of them were price changes down, meaning, and still active. So they didn't get their price, they're on the market. Days on the market is growing, things aren't selling as fast as they were, like I was saying. And now you got people doing price changes because they overreached on their price. And that's going to be a big thing you're going to see right now, because, as a lot of agents who aren't in the market, we've been very fortunate where we've listed basically at least one thing almost every single week this entire year. We're in the market, feeling it happen in real time. So if you've got an agent that, hasn't taken a listing in a little bit, they might not be aware of these nuances that we're experiencing right now in real time. So what I was going to show here was, I believe this is everything that's closed so far from January 1st, and I just went to the end of August just to be on an exact month. Let me make sure that's what I'm looking at here. Yeah, so this is the entire year from January 1st to August. as you can see here. And look at the average close price to list price. So it's only 20,000 over asking, which is phenomenal. And that would have been a phenomenal, what we call close price to list price ratio. Obviously, at any point, if you divide the 746 by the 725, you get 102.8. So on average for the entire year of everything closing, they're averaging 2.8 over asking, which that's great. It's nearly 3%, and this average price is 700,000. So obviously 3% of 700,000, you're averaging 20,000 over. That's great. If a seller in any market got 20,000 over, well, I make this point to say, so many people are hearing these crazy things of 100,000, and there has been some crazy stuff out there, and hundreds of thousands over, 150,000 over. You know, a lot of buyers were throwing crazy prices at things. Doesn't always mean that it's stuck, because obviously they would have had to waive the appraisal, and maybe they were saying it, or maybe they weren't saying it, but then they were still renegotiating later, even if they did agree to waive the appraisal. We've seen some crazy stuff. So on average, in Santa Clarita for the entire year, we're only averaging 20,000 over asking, really 19, right? So then what I did is, oh my gosh, I had that on the wrong screen. My bad. Look, the 746 divided by, so close price to list price ratio, move the decimal over, right? 102.8, let's go to 103. Things are averaging just about 3% over asking. Well, then what I did, I took us, Cherie Brown, because everything's in Cherie Brown's name. This is everything we closed from in Santa Clarita from that same time period. And we're at 900 to 849. So divide that, we're averaging almost 106%. Gosh, I'm really bad at this, guys. Here are those numbers again. I was blocking with my own face. My bad. The whole Santa Clarita, 746 divided by 725. This is close price to list price as a ratio, averaging 102.8. Here's us specifically at 900,000 to an average close, to an 850 average close, which is 106%. So we are averaging 3% higher than the average, and that's the average. And there's a lot of sub-average agents out there as well. Of course, there's other agents with successes as well, but my point to all this is having a good pricing strategy, having a good marketing strategy. Our marketing strategy, we truly feel, is untouchable. The way that we market your home for sale, we are running paid targeted advertisements through Facebook, through Google, YouTube, and Google owns YouTube, through Instagram. All these channels, we have the ability to put your property in front of somebody who, based on their online behaviors, we know are interested in purchasing a home. And then from there, we can target the cities specific that we know are moving here. Like I just said, Glendale, Pasadena, Burbank. So we have this marketing strategy that we know that I can quantifiably say is more effective, because we are targeting the people that are moving to Santa Clarita and putting your property in front of them and driving more traffic to your home than the average agent. This whole thing wasn't necessarily a pitch, but my point is, you really got to have a strategy in selling a home, especially if you want to get top dollar. Identifying the proper price, especially right now, as if we are really in a little bit of a slowdown, if this persists and this is the new norm, and we're out of the craziness that was happening at the end of last year and the beginning of this year, then having the proper pricing strategy. 30 price reductions in the last 7 days. A price reduction is going to be a kiss of death. Once you do that price reduction, the buyer's going to feel, I can't tell you how many times I've had a buyer go, hey, they just dropped the price $10,000. Do you think I can offer 30,000 under that? People see that as a sign of weakness and an ability to then come in and lowball. It means you're not selling. You know, I mean, ultimately, that's what that means. You didn't get the price. It looks, it's perceived by buyers as a sense, as a desperation move at this point. So, you know, making sure that you don't end up in a price reduction is going to be key as things start to settle down. You don't want that kiss of death. Actually, I want to look back at one other thing real quick. I didn't notice what the average days on the market were. So average DOM was 13. Our average was 5. And if you notice too, every one of our properties sold over asking. You know, that's the goal, is how do we create a bidding or a multiple offer situation for our sellers on their properties? Do you as a seller want to negotiate with one buyer who has the position of leverage if you're on the market for 14 days and you get one offer? That buyer is going to have that position of leverage. Who has a position of leverage if you have 2 or 3 or 4 or 5 multiple buyers wanting to buy your property? You have offers from multiple buyers. Who has a position of leverage? Then the seller does at that point. And that is the goal. How do we put you in a position of leverage in negotiations as a seller? Well, my friends, thank you for paying attention. That definitely was a little bit of a ramble. I just wanted to go through some of that just to kind of talk it out. These are conversations that we're having with all of our buyers and sellers and kind of on a daily. And I think it's good to just get this out there so people understand what we are experiencing. We did list a property last week that we received multiple offers on. It did go 175,000 over asking. That obviously is a significant and crazy amount over. While negotiating that offer, cool, somebody wanted it that bad and went that high, but is that home going to appraise? No. We try to identify for our listing price, what is the market value of the home? We want to list for market value because let's say in this particular property, this is the one we listed on Wayman. If anybody saw that video I did where we were kind of messing around, I had my car in it, but it was like this really cool house off of in Happy Valley, off of Lyons. Had a different, unique vibe to it for Santa Clarita. Had kind of a mid-century vibe. We listed for $1 million. That's about, you know, what we believe to be the market value of the home for appraisal value. We always want to list for what we believe it would appraise for through the eyes of an appraiser, because let's say, and did I believe that I could get 1.1 for that house? Yes. But if I list that house for 1.1 and it only and I get an offer at 1.1 and it only appraises for 1 million, how do we convince that buyer, excuse me, to contribute that $100,000 gap? Because that's what we would then negotiate. Either the buyer would want to pay the appraised price of $1 million, or the seller is going to want the buyer to pay the 1.1 regardless. So how do you get a buyer to give you that $100,000 gap? Because it is really $100,000 out of pocket. They still have to do their down payment and closing costs. It's almost $100,000 burned to the buyer. So how do you achieve that? The buyer's just going to go, well, I gave you your price, 1.1. You mispriced it. It didn't appraise. So we find that the more effective pricing strategy is to list the home at what we and the seller come to a conclusion on what we think it would appraise for through the eyes of an appraiser. We list at that price, let our marketing where we're targeting these buyers take over, where we can drive, you know, we get a ton of exposure, we're driving people to the property, get multiple offers, and then let somebody fight for it. If we've got 5 buyers that all want it, somebody's more inclined to go 100,000 over, or maybe in this case 175,000 over. Then we could be looking for a buyer that will be willing to waive that appraisal contingency. So that's them saying that they're going to pay that price for it no matter, regardless of what it appraises for. And then it was the buyer choosing to overpay, not us saying we want this price for the home even if it doesn't appraise. You're going to strike out more often than not doing it that way versus listing at appraised value. All right, rant over. Thank you for paying attention. If anybody has any question about anything, or even wants us to run comps on their personal property, or just wants to talk about the market and real estate, by all means, please let me know. Zach McReynolds from the Cherie and Zach team, NextHome Real Estate Rockstars. Thank you so much. I think it's 58 degrees in my office right now and I'm freezing. Have a great day. Bye.